a guinea. It's yours if you let us see sell your shop. You've got 10 seconds to make up your mind.
I don't need 10 seconds, mate. And it's a deal. You're my new best friend. Mr. Book, follow me. You've got 1 hour. Mind your pretty dress on yours, Miss Belle. They're covered in slime. 1 pawn every minute. Hey, who'd have thought a talking book? Wait till I told the lies.
Dido Elizabeth Belle. I'd like to introduce you to Sam Sharpe. Delighted to meet you, Mr. Sharpe. Sorry we can't shake hands.
Likewise, Miss Belle. You're not from around here, are you?
We haven't got time for that again. I've brought Miss Belle here so she can hear your story. Mr. Sharpe, is it true?
Is what true?
That you're going to be hanged in the morning?
By the neck until he is dead. Then his head is to be cut off and placed on a spike and displayed in the main square. That is what the judge says.
What on earth did you do?
Well, it's a long story.
We've got 1 hour.
That should be enough. Where shall I begin?
At the beginning.
A very good place to start. I suggest that you take a seat. I was born in the year of our Lord 1801 on the Sharpe plantation of this island of Jamaica.
Sam's mother, Dido, was enslaved. Therefore, Sam and his siblings became slaves. From the moment they were born, they were the property of Mr. Samuel Sharpe and Mrs. Jane Sharpe. It's a huge plantation farm that grew sugar cane. They worked from morning until dark, and it was dangerous, especially because of Mr. Sharpe.
What do you mean?
Well, Mrs. Sharpe, she's not too bad. Well, for a slave owner. But Mr. Sharpe's an evil man. He once caught a slave, a girl, nibbling on sugarcane. Can you guess what he did?
No?
What are you doing, girl?
I'm eating, sir. I've been working since dawn. I'm exhausted. I need to eat something or I'll faint.
What exactly are you eating?
Sugarcane, sir. There's fields and fields of it.
And whose sugarcane is it? It's my sugarcane, girl. Oh, mine! So what does that make you?
But,
It makes you a thief, girl.
but...
Don't answer me back, girl. Don't you ever steal from me again.
Sorry, sir. I won't.
Too right you will. I'll make sure you never eat my property again. Open your mouth.
But...
Open wide, girl.
And Mr. Sharpe proceeded to pull out every single tooth from the girl's mouth. And the girl never nibbled on the sugar cane again.
Goodness me!
That's not all.
Every day at harvest time, everyone was expected to cut the cane and bring it to the pressing machine and squeeze it out the sugar. It was the busiest time of the year. At the end of the day, the overseers, they're the horrible men that Mr. Sharpe hired as supervisors, had the job of weighing each worker's marked load. Guess what happened to the slave who got the least?
He gets a right whipping. Or she, they get chained to the whipping post. Their shirts ripped off their backs. Then an overseer, usually fat sternly. He's the worst. I think he really enjoys it. Whips their back until there's no skin left. And we all have to watch. And when it's all over, Mr. Sharpe gives this speech. Always the same speech. I won't tolerate idlers and slackers on my plantation. Let this be a lesson to you all. Make sure you work hard in the field tomorrow, or it could be your turn in the whipping post. Now go back to your cabins and make sure you're in the fields at the crack of dawn. This sugar won't harvest itself, you lazy, good-for-nothing Negroes. Should I go on?
No, you've had more than enough now. I'm confused, Mr. Sharpe. I thought you were Mr. Sharpe.
I am.
But you said, Mr. Sharpe, your slave owner's first name is Mr. Sharpe, so that means he's Mr. Sharpe.
Yes, we're both called Samuel Sharpe.
What?
Yes, your owner can give you whatever name he chooses. He gave me the name Sharpe to show how he owns me. You know why I think he gave me the name Samuel Sharpe?
No?
Well, I reckon he's my father.
What?
The masters of the plantation actually fathered many slaves who they didn't acknowledge. These children were treated just as harshly as the other slaves. Dido starts to realize how fortunate she is and how much her father and Lord and Lady Mansfield really loved her.
So, back to your story. You said you thought he was your father. Does he not accept you?
No.
Unlike my father, Sir John Lindsay, who has always acknowledged me as his daughter and brought me to live at Kenwood House with my uncle.
Dido, I don't think you realize how fortunate you are. You are amazing. Your father loved you enough to take you away from the plantations. You are in a unique position. Use it wisely.
I am beginning to understand things a little better now.
Remember that I told you Mrs. Sharpe wasn't too bad for a slave owner?
Go on.
She could see that I was clever, so she helped me to learn to read.
Why is that a big deal?
Because they normally don't let slaves learn to read.
How come?
Because a slave who can read about the anti-slavery campaigns and a slave who can read is a dangerous slave. A slave who can read about the anti-slavery campaigns in Britain and tell all the other slaves. That's what I do.
How?
Well, I carried on reading and improving my education, and eventually I became a minister in a Baptist church.
Why is that a big deal?
Because normally they didn't let slaves learn to read. Because the only place slaves were allowed to meet up is in church. The slave owners want us to be good Christians, so they encourage us. In fact, they make us go to church. They think that then we'll accept our lot and put up with obeying God's rules. But the Bible, so that we get salvation in the next world after we're dead. But the Bible also says, no man should serve two masters, and only God is my master.
Wow!
But I was lucky. I nearly didn't get to learn to read.
How come?
Mr. Sharpe was against it.
I'm warning you, Jane, you'll regret it.
Regret what?
Teaching young Samuel to read.
What's the harm in that?
A slave who can read is a dangerous slave.
Then Sam, he can't do what he can. He so reminds me when we were younger.
Well, all right then, you can teach Samuel to read, but don't go teaching any other slaves to read. Now, what are we having for my supper, my dear? More importantly, have I told you how beautiful you look in that dress? I fell in love with you when I first clapped my eyes on you.
Oh Sam, you do know how to make a read.
So why are you chained to a slimy wall in prison?
Well, I was allowed to go around Jamaica preaching in churches and I'd read that in Mr. Sharpe's newspapers that the British were thinking of ending slavery.
William Wilberforce made speeches in Parliament and was part of a big anti-slavery movement that was making progress towards abolition of the slave trade. For example, many Britons who didn't approve of slavery were refusing to buy sugar.
So I came up with a cunning plan.
A cunning plan?
Yes, a cunning plan. Me and some of my Baptist ministers decided to go on strike. During the harvest season, when it's busiest. If we don't cut the sugar cane right away, it rots in the fields and becomes useless. So, we would not do our job until our demands are met. Given that we don't get paid any money, we don't have a lot to lose.
What? You don't get paid any money? You don't get any wages?
No, not a penny, ever.
When someone bought a slave, they owned them for life. It's like when they bought a horse. The slave worked until they died, then the owner would just buy another one. Simple.
What?
Yes, you can see how much money they must make. You can buy a slave in Africa for 1 guinea. That's about £1.
We have guineas. They sell racehorses for guineas in England.
And human beings.
So a ship's captain would buy several hundred Africans for a guinea each, and then cram them into the hold of a ship and sells them for about 30 guineas each in Jamaica and the other Caribbean islands. And in America and Brazil, the ship's captain then used the money to buy sugar, tobacco, cotton, and other goods produced by slaves, sailed back to Britain and sold the produce at a huge profit. It was called the triangular trade. The round trip took about 3 months and they made an average profit of 60% each trip. How much money must have they made it in a year?
4 times 6%. So it's 240%.
Actually, much more due to the phenomenon of compound interest. But that's one for the math specialists. I told you I was clever.
So, isn't that illegal? Isn't that against the law?
No, perfectly legal. The king, King George, owns slaves. So does the Church of England. All legal and respectable.
So you can see where the wealth of Britain comes from, can't you? Those fancy stately homes, money from slavery. All those factories in Manchester making cotton, paid for by slavery. Bristol, Glasgow, Liverpool, all built on slavery.
So, what happened with the strike?
Well, I arranged a meeting with some Baptist ministers who I trusted, who arranged to go on strike and sealed it with a kiss.
Sealed it with a kiss?
Yes, this is what happened.
Thank you, gentlemen, for coming and keeping our meeting secret. So we all agreed that on the 28th December 1831, all slaves would stop working.
We agree.
It is very important that this is a peaceful protest and we will stop working until our demands are met. Are we all agreed?
We agree.
In that case, I pledge allegiance to our just cause. Has anyone brought a Bible? Surprise, surprise! Henry, may I borrow your Bible?
It will be an honor, Samuel.
I pledge allegiance to our just cause.
I pledge allegiance to our just. Tribute don't with the COVID rules.
Oh, good point. Social distance kissing, please, gentlemen.
I pledge allegiance to our just cause. I pledge allegiance to our just cause. I pledge allegiance to our just cause. Amen.
We agreed that things would be non-violent, but things took a turn for the worse.
Took a turn.
The slave owners heard of Sam's plans and informed government. The British Navy sent gunships. One thing led to another and it all kicked off. The great house at Kensington Plantation was set on fire and 60,000 slaves went on strike. The rebellion lasted 11 days. The slave owners turned on the freedom fighters with whips and dogs and guns and called in the British Army.
I think you met one of the soldiers, Corporal Higgins from Woolwich, London. He's the one guarding you.
Yes, we did. Nasty, unpleasant, dirty little man.
Did anyone get badly hurt?
14 Europeans were killed.
Any African people?
We're not sure of the exact number, but I think it was 207 during the fighting. After we lost, the British army captured a load more of us and put us all on trial.
What happened next?
They sentenced 340 of us to death. They've already executed 339. I'm the last.
How did they get killed?
They were hanged by the neck at the gallows.
What's the gallows?
It's a big wooden frame that executioners make to kill people by hanging them from a rope around their necks. It gets worse, I'm afraid. Their heads are cut off and placed on spikes all over Jamaica.
As warning to others?
Exactly. And as they decided that I was the ringleader, they've left me till last.
How are you feeling?
You know what? I'd rather die than spend another day as a slave. But you know what? We might have lost this battle, but in the end, we might win the war.
Time's up. Nice to meet you, Mr. Dido, and thanks for the guinea, Mr. Book. Now, Sammy boy, what do you want for your last meal?
Justice, freedom, and peace.
Funny, they normally go for steak and chips and peas. But you've always been a bit different, haven't you, Sammy boy?
I'll fight for our freedom. I did my best to make things right. Maybe I wasn't listening and just heard what should be right. They've held my people in slavery for years. Each night I listen to their miseries and fears. I hoped my wisdom would take us out of here, and a man would set us free. I'll fight for our freedom, and I won't stop until I die. My Bible says no man can serve two masters, and an eye for an eye. I'd rather die on yonder gallows than live here and be a slave. I'd rather die on yonder gallows than live here and be a slave. I'd rather die on yonder gallows than live here and be a slave. I'd rather die on yonder gallows than live here and be a slave. I'd rather die on yonder gallows than be a slave. than be a slave. Than